A few days ago, I completed the purchase on my brand new Shopsmith Mark VII. So this is going to be a Shopsmith Mark VII unboxing. Good morning. It's Sunday, April 10th at 6 a.m. and I'm in my van headed down to Dayton, Ohio to pick up my new Shopsmith Mark VII. I'll be visiting with some family for a little while. Then tomorrow morning, I head over to the factory to pick up the machine and take a factory tour. I didn't capture any footage of the interior of the Shopsmith building, but I gotta tell you, loading the Shopsmith into my van couldn't be easier. They just drove a forklift right up to the back and we slid it right in. The drive home was uneventful. Now I gotta get the machine out of my van, onto my workbench, so I can start working. Before I continue unboxing and assembling my new Mark 7, I'm going to go ahead and read the first couple chapters of the owner's manual to make sure that I'm doing this all correctly. After removing the machine and all its parts from the boxes, I follow the step-by-step instructions in the manual to assemble, clean, wax, and align the machine. I paid a premium price for this Shopsmith machine and have premium expectations. I have to say I was treated very well during my trip to Shopsmith, and it was very easy to pick up the machine and load it into my van. Renee also took my father and I on a factory tour, and she was really nice to us. In fact, everybody there was really nice to us. It was definitely a premium experience. And I have to say that the packing materials and the way the machine was packed was also premium. This is really good cardboard and really good packing materials. It's not that sort of mystery cardboardy stuff that has a weird smell that we're all kind of used to from overseas tools. So now that I have everything assembled, cleaned, waxed, and aligned, I can turn the headstock on for the first time. Well, I've only owned the machine a few days now, and so far I'm extremely happy with it. However, I do have a few critical items I'd like to cover with you. Most of these are minor annoyances, but there's one critical issue that has to be solved, and hopefully it's a very easy fix. The first minor annoyance has to do with installing the legs. There's a simple one-sentence step here, step 8, to slip the legs into the slot. I found it very challenging to get the legs inserted into the slot in a manner in which all 5 screws would actually thread through. The second minor annoyance has to do with Power Tool Woodworking for Everyone, which is a new copy I got with my Mark 7. I compared it page by page, and it's identical to this old copy with a copyright of 1989. However, the Shopsmith Mark 7 with the PowerPro headstock was first released in 2010. So it's been 12 years that this machine has been on the market, and one of its main selling features as compared to the Mark V are 2 additional functions having to do with routing and shaping. Those topics are covered in both of these books, but the steps show how to do it on the older machine, not the newer machine. I have to admit, I was hoping for an update. The next minor annoyance has to do with the hex keys. I received all of the short hex keys, but I did not receive a long hex key. And I went back through my unboxing video to make sure I wasn't crazy. That's no big deal for me. As a Shopsmith owner, I have plenty of long 5/32 hex keys. But this tool is instrumental in the alignment process. You cannot do the alignment process as stated in the manual without the long hex key. So it's a little annoying that that was not in the box. Another minor annoyance is the table leg attachments. I've never seen this version before. Something I don't like about it is it does not use the 5/32 hex key for either bolt, and it's really way too big for the size of pole we're talking about. Very rough in comparison to the original style of knuckle joint, which is a very good fit and uses the 5/32 hex key. Now, this one on the miter gauge might be a little difficult to see, but there's a heavy varnish or coating or something on the face of the miter gauge. Unfortunately, it's not even. There's globs and drips and bumps, which means the face of this miter gauge is not true in all places. So if I want the maximum accuracy possible in all cases, which I do, I'll have to find a way to remove that coating so that this is a completely flat face. The next annoyance has to do with the main table. Now, before I tell you about that, I want to let you know that I did every step in the alignment procedure, and it absolutely needed it. There were several things that needed to be realigned. I had heard a rumor that the factory was doing a better job at aligning the machine before shipping it out, and that it may not need alignment when you get it home. That was not the case for this machine, but that doesn't bother me. As a Shopsmith owner, I knew that the machine was going to most likely need alignment. When I first pulled the unit out of the box, I checked the table for flatness, and I was good front to back left to right in the front, but putting the straight edge back here or in this direction, I had a dip in the rear left corner. Also, there seemed to be some casting defects in this part of the table. And it appears at some point in the manufacturing process, they used some sort of sander to polish off those defects. And it won't show up on camera, but there's some very gnarly swirl marks all over this area, including a pretty big sanding arc right here. That left a lot of metal filings and abrasive debris all in the miter tracks and underneath the saw guard. It was also on the tie bar and the tie bar plastic cover underneath the table. So it's taken some thorough cleaning to finally get all of that off, and just when I think I've gotten it all, I find more. So that's a little irritating. But part of the good news is after doing all the alignment procedures, particularly aligning the miter gauges to the saw blade, the table's now pretty much flat. Most of that dip that was over here in the corner is now gone. The next issue has to do with the fence. You can see that there's a pretty gnarly defect here in the casting. I'm not going to worry about that because it's entirely cosmetic. It's not going to cause me any problems. But again, I was expecting a little better. Okay, so now we're going to talk about the one issue that matters and has to be corrected. It has to do with this pad here. It is not all the way seated against the aluminum. It's seated over here, but not over here. And I've tried pressing it in all the way home with a clamp. It just won't go. So what this means is that in the plane here, which rides against the front of the rail down here, there's a high spot here. What that means is when I put the fence on, it will rock back and forth. The typical advice is when you move the fence, don't move it here, move it back here. The problem is it's going to rock back and forth, and it's going to be difficult to get an accurate picture of how far the fence is from the blade. Also, what this means is since there's a high spot here, the fence is twisted this way, which means that it was very difficult to adjust the fence parallel to the blade. So this one issue is the annoyance that I think has to be fixed. I will contact Shopsmith next week, and hopefully it's as simple as sending me a new pad. Hopefully I just pop this one off and put a new one on. Okay, I admit it. I'm being pretty picky with these minor annoyances, but I didn't want you all to think that this was some doughy-eyed review of the Shopsmith system. It's not. I'm a customer, I paid full price, and I have pretty high expectations. However, I will say none of those issues at this point has changed my opinion. I think that this is an excellent machine. It's top-notch, and I'm really looking forward to using it. Well, that does it for this video. I hope to see you all in the next.